that really is more of a discretionary purchase, just like the stock market's kind of like extra money.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, hey, maybe they have it in a tech stock like Nvidia and it's way up in the stratosphere, rotate out of that, get into a hard asset.
Yeah, so it's going to factor in, but not in the way people are thinking. It's not like interest rates are going to cause this huge boom and like people are going to start buying because, as you say, it's like mostly a cash market. Like I personally think so too. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. We're here with Fletcher Wheaton for another video where we'll be discussing real estate issues, real estate topics. There's a lot to talk about right now with peak season coming. Fletcher, how are you doing?
Good. Peak season, you can always tell peak season, the best indicator is traffic on the road.
Oh, I know.
It's starting to get colder in a lot of places in the US. People are coming down here regardless of pricing, regardless of anything. Peak season's picking up. So I expect this to be a very active peak season. We have elections in like 15 days, something like that. So that's a topic. I personally think everybody's actually past that.
Yeah.
As far as decision making, finances, things like that, the sun is going to rise regardless.
Yeah.
So that's where we're at, man.
What have you noticed, like, before we get into everything we're going to talk about, what have you noticed on a personal level regarding real estate that is changing with peak season coming? Like, for example, I'm noticing like you start talking to clients at the beginning of the year. Maybe the time between responses is like starting to get a lot quicker. The responses, a lot more interest. People are, what they've been planning on doing the whole year is kind of like it comes down to these next few months.
Each segment is different, right? But the past, I'd say like 4 to 5 months has been unusually slow for a lot of people. You're going to see pricing has corrected in a lot of these segments. Let's call it condo market in San Lucas. And I think you're going to start to see people plucking up some deals. And I think that can start to, hey, maybe I should list my property, or hey, maybe I should buy this.
Yeah.
So I think there's going to be more activity for sure.
A lot of people are freaking out with how low the low season was. It happens with any business, if you own a restaurant in Cabo, the slow season starts and you just start like dreading it. You start feeling like how...
There's a couple things, like real estate wise, I think Cabo, I actually call it peak season and regular season. I know a lot of markets that are very seasonal in the fact that, you make your money in a couple months.
Yeah.
Like Mazatlan is a good example of that. A lot of people like make their rentals in 3 months of the year, and then the rest of the year is kind of like normal. That's one thing with real estate. When you get to like the business side of things, I think there was a lot, but also on top of that, it's just a very competitive market with like restaurants and things. And there's a lot of really good places here. So everything's looking up. Even the guy at the coffee shop that I go to, he's like, man, I can't, I can't even keep up right now. So it's going to be a good season. A lot of people, Cabo's not going anywhere. The weather's getting really nice, and it's going to stay like that for
the Bisbees is going on right now.
Bisbees is starting to have all the smaller tournaments, and that really kind of kicks off peak season, so to speak. And at least like the hotel rates start going up, and you can see, just look at average daily rate for hotels, and that just shows you when peak season. It drops to its lowest in September, and then it keeps kicking up, You
need to know how to work those fluctuations, If you're thinking about selling your property, you need to think about like, okay, this is what the year is going to look like. What am I going to do during the slower season to get ready for the peak season? Instead of being like too reactionary when things start to go down, freaking out, okay, let's lower the price. Like maybe this isn't going to sell, and just like exaggerate.
I just checked. Stock market today is at an all-time high. The S&P 500 is an all-time high. We had interest rates drop about 0.5% in the US. A lot of people borrow money to buy real estate in the United States. Here, I still think this is 90% a cash market. So I've always said that the stock market is because people are like, oh, interest rates drop. Like that doesn't mean that the next person that buys this house that's Now, look, it is a ripple effect because that affects their investments.
Yeah.
But with the stock market at all-time high, the person who's going to buy a $3.5 million home and he's not financing, they might have a portfolio in the stock market that's $10 million. So if from one year to the next, they go from, let's say, $8 million to $10 million, that is a lot more advantageous than interest rates going from 7% to 6.5%. Even though that interest rate drop might have caused or helped the market to go up, at the end of the day, the barometer of the stock market is huge because somebody that's buying this house, they might live here full time. But in my experience, most people are buying in Cabo as a vacation destination, a getaway spot. That really is more of a discretionary purchase, just like the stock market's kind of like extra money. And it's, hey, maybe they have it in a tech stock like NVIDIA and it's way up in the stratosphere, rotate out of that, get into a hard asset.
Yeah, so it's going to factor in, but not in the way people are thinking. It's not like interest rates are gonna cause this huge boom and like people are gonna start buying because, as you say, it's like mostly a cash market. Like I personally think so too. Something else that you wanted to talk about, it's like when people start looking into other places in Baja for the wrong reasons.
Okay, so we don't price an asset according to its value, but its relative price. For example, if we bought a stock at $50 and its value today is $40, we judge how good our decision was in reference to the purchase price. So it's down to $40, right?
Yeah.
We paid $50, we're kind of pissed off. Or if a stock we consider buying trades around $50 for sometimes drops to $35, we say, hey, that's a bargain now, right? And automatically assume that $35 is a bargain. The present price of an asset in relation to its past price doesn't mean anything. The underlying business value is what matters. We have data that shows what people are looking at, what people are interested in, where markets are going higher. And for example, La Paz. La Paz is a cool market. If you're coming from Denver, I was just up in Denver, you come down on a daily direct flight, and you can fly back, so daily direct flights from Denver, super easy to get here. That's not really the case. And you could get to this location from the airport in 35, 40 minutes, maybe, be in your, in the pool. So if it's La Paz, I don't know, throw on maybe 2 hours to that, right? So it's not the same. But a lot of people they might have seen a house, let's just say, or a unit that was maybe $350,000. And this was a couple years ago. And now that same unit is $450,000. Okay. And now they look at a market, and this is in Los Cabos. And now they look at La Paz and they see something that's like 325. Now they have the FOMO and they have it anchored in their head that a couple years ago, the property they wanted was this. And they're saying, wait, but I can get the same thing in La Paz now for this. And my point is, if you come down to Cabo a lot and you like Cabo, it is completely different than La Paz. And now I'm not saying that. I think La Paz is a really cool market. I think it's got a lot to value, but you can't, you have to ask yourself, are you only looking there because relative in pricing, it looks better than other places? And I think a lot of people, if they ask themselves that question, they will say yes. With that being said, go to La Paz, stay there. Go in the summertime.
If you like La Paz, go to La Paz. But like taking into consideration like prices changing in Cabo to make a decision about buying in La Paz is just like irrelevant, I think.
No, exactly. And it's, hey, the Airbnb rates are not. Matter of fact, I know somebody that does Airbnb in La Paz, and there was this map of like all the active Airbnbs, and there's a lot. So that's another thing. I do see a lot of people looking at different markets, and we'll see. We got the election coming up, but I would not be shocked to see, now we have the stock market at all-time high. I wouldn't be shocked to see a good peak season here where it gets, because look, a couple years ago you had FOMO. And that wasn't just here, that was in the States, right? Like you felt like you were missing out. Stock market, assets, homes. I wouldn't be shocked to see more of that enter this peak season. I would say, obviously, if you're looking at these markets that are more fringe markets, make sure that you actually know, because if it's one thing to be sitting in Denver looking at a property, and it's another thing to be eating tacos on the Malecon and La Paz and being like, hey, this is cool, but
there's always going to be like these external factors, like the election in this case. Like, you know that the market is going to be going up and down throughout the year, but through all of that, there's going to be always something else to add. Like right now, we're going to have a peak season with an election. It seems like hurricane season in Cabo was, well, it wasn't.
Pretty tame.
Yeah, it was like
we got some much needed rain.
Yeah,
that exposed a couple leaks.
So there's always going to be like these extra things. Like I was reading about these places in the US where one of the main things to consider when buying or selling in a market where it's normally like mainly family homes, you need to take into consideration the school year. Or also in places like where it snows, where the weather is going to be like the main thing to consider when buying or selling. So it's the same here. And that's like what I was saying, that if it's going down, you need to take advantage of that space for like, okay, maybe I need to remodel.
Yeah, renovations.
Or maybe I need to like, okay, I need to find a brokerage. I need to have all this ready by this month.
You can outsmart yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of times, oh, hey, you got to list like this time, not that time. I think the data would show that there's certain times where it's probably not the best, depending.
Yeah.
But once again, you get into the different segments.
If we're going to be honest, when we talk about the real estate market, then we're going to talk about sometimes things going lower. But it's only because we know that eventually it's going to get better, you know? Right now we have active listings, 1,015 versus 1,088 last year. We have sold 34 versus 88 last year. Pending 69 versus 49. And
is this month or what?
October versus October 2023. If you're familiar with the market, you listen to these numbers and you're like, okay, it's lower than last year.
What is the new listing?
New listings, it's 113 versus 136.
So we have less new listings right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think we're down 20%.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and we were down 35%. So you had a lot of times you have like these high-end developments that just throw sales on all at once. Mm-hmm. So that made the market look better than it was, in my opinion, when you start looking in like Tezal. There's a development in Tezal, and I've spoken to quite a few people. And matter of fact, they've reached out because of videos on pre-construction issues, right? 4 people in one development. And I'd say this development's probably 40 to 50% built out. And there are issues. So the people call me up and they say, hey, we're thinking about selling our place so we can buy another one. You know, and I told them, I said, that's like walking into a barbershop and asking if you need a haircut. Anybody's going to tell you, yeah. Mm-hmm. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, man, this doesn't really feel good. Mm-hmm. You know, I'd much rather have them fix their issues here, and maybe that, you know, the product goes up $100,000, $200,000, and whenever they want to sell it in the future. This one, and another thing is, this developer is actively like looking at new projects. Like they're going to do new projects, mm-hmm. and they haven't finished this project, and there's a lot of people. And here's the thing, the owners are like, hey, should we go public with this? And the other owners are, no, we shouldn't go because it's going to hurt our property values. Mm-hmm. And my point of view on that is the developer has a lot more to lose than you guys do. Mm-hmm. If these issues get fixed, then long-term, you're so much better.
Yeah, it's all about like how they're going to react to the issues that come up as soon as everything is finished. Because if they come up to you and they ask you like, would you be interested in selling this? I'm going to wait a little before getting involved to see if they're actually going to fix this. They could always say, we're not going to do anything about fixing this.
No,
you know,
and this particular development, it's water, but they shouldn't have any issues. It was like they went super cheap when they were selling it. They, you know, that was like the main thing, one of the things that was like differentiating it from the other products, you know? Yeah. So that's one place. Then there's another one, and no deliveries are easy. But this developer has stuck with the same person to do which was a third party, by the way, like has no, so they're representing the client really. So the developer is like, hey, we're going to use this inspector to do all the inspections. And I got somebody actually, well, I know 2 people from Colorado that are getting deliveries today. And the punch list was pretty small.
Yeah.
But the first ones in that project, they were kind of large. But you can see as they start delivering and the communication has been there, hasn't been perfect, but it's just 2 different experiences there where like, hey, they're going to do right. This, Pedro, I'm going to meet up with an attorney after this. That same attorney told me, I called him up and I was like, man, I do not feel good about, like we can sell this condo and get them something else, but like something needs to be done about this. And he told me, he goes, that developer will only do something if you file a lawsuit against them.
What you're saying that they're going to be doing more projects in Cabo, word is going to get out. There's no way if the first one like goes down like that, the next one, there's no way it does.
You know what I was thinking?
Because I know that they sold. Like, yeah, they sold. I remember like going over there when it was starting. It's always looking great when it's starting,
But see, they burned a lot of agents too, because they had the people that were selling that project, they said stuff about like, hey, this is going to have like no water issues. And really it shouldn't, given its location and everything. So
given the price, maybe, because you go in there and it's like, look at the amenities. And personally, I wouldn't care about like a pickleball court if I can't take a shower.
But here's something that I think is interesting. I was watching, it was in Venezuela. The reporters did not want to be talking about the politicians because fear of retribution. On the news there, they have like avatars that are giving the news and you can't really tell. So it was like, this needs to happen against these because people are like scared to call it out. And personally, I've done a couple videos on that. I like doing good business, so I'd rather focus on good things. But these are things it's 2024, 2025. You're not going to be able to get away with this stuff, let alone when you burn people. But that's the thing, is that sometimes they're going to find somebody. By the way, they reached out to me to be the manager for their new projects a couple months ago, which I laughed at. I didn't even respond, but so somebody's going to take that job and then it's their livelihood incentive to sell that project. So all they got to do is find new people. If you have an uptick in market,
they're always going to find someone who's willing to do it. I think it's not like everyone is going to say no because they know what's going on.
Yeah. And that's the thing with development. You got to pick a good developer. The delivery process is never going to be that smooth, in my opinion. But that's why the risk of buying, you get in a better price and you're essentially paid for that as opposed to just buying something that's built out, right? And then on top of it is, hey, there's going to be a lot of resales this year. So if that's not your cup of tea, I completely understand. Yeah. So you'll have opportunities for resales.
So much being built and so much of that's at risk of having these same issues that we're talking about, that I think there is a risk of like a reputation happening, word of mouth, people talking and saying like, if you go to Cabo, like there's just so much, because we know, like we talked about this in another video, that if you see everything that's listed and you filter like to get whatever your client is looking for, then as realtors, we have an extra filter, which is I know what is worth looking into and what to stay away from. And the stuff you need to stay away from is more than what people
yeah, and oftentimes that's the ones that people are asking about.
Yeah,
and it's like, hey, why do you think it's priced like that?
Yeah, and they're like, but the renders though, so good.
Yeah, but my brother-in-law is an architect, and he's a good architect. But he always tells me, always compares like the renders and he's like, there's always something.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a pretty good update. Peak season's coming. It's here. Bisbee's is just starting. Good weather is coming. We look forward to welcoming everybody here. And the sky is not falling. People love the area, and this is the time of year when you come down and you're like, oh my God, the weather's incredible. So any questions, reach out to Pedro Bulnes or myself. Let us know some ideas for the next videos, and we'll
see you later.